Hello, my name is Gabriel Meissner, and you are watching rptv News. Recently, the Moss Park Consumption and Treatment Services opened its doors to the community, welcoming residents to an insightful open house event located at 134 Sherbourne Street. Moss Park CTS stands as a vital pillar in Toronto's healthcare framework, addressing the critical needs of vulnerable populations across the city. Originally spearheaded by the Toronto Overdose Prevention Society, Moss Park CTS has blossomed into an essential resource, now overseen by the South Riverdale Community Health Centre. The open house provided attendees with a first-hand look into the pivotal services offered by Moss Park CTS, encompassing naloxone training, safe needle disposal demonstrations, site tours, and chill space activities. In an era marked by escalating overdose rates, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, Moss Park CTS emerges as a beacon of hope, saving lives and championing health through its overdose prevention and supervised consumption services. Recent findings published in The Lancet underscore the efficacy of supervised consumption sites in curbing opioid fatalities, with neighborhoods within 500 meters witnessing a remarkable 67% reduction in overdose deaths post-site establishment. These results echo the urgent need for controlled drug use interventions amid a public health crisis that has claimed tens of thousands of Canadian lives. Despite controversy surrounding supervised consumption sites, Moss Park CTS remains steadfast in its commitment to fostering health, community, and hope. Under the guidance of Aaron and Brian, rptv embarked on a tour and demonstration, offering insights into the invaluable work conducted at the CTS.
Welcome to Moss Park Consumption and Treatment Service. This initiative actually started in Moss Park in 2017 as an unsanctioned overdose prevention site. So that's where I started working in Moss Park. I was one of the volunteer nurses for the OPS. And that was the first supervised consumption service in Ontario. And it was run by, I think there were 150 volunteers, Toronto Overdose Prevention Society and the Toronto Harm Reduction Alliance were organizing it. And they set up tents to do overdose prevention. And that sort of pushed the government to expedite opening sanctioned sites. So we operated in the park for a year. And then our service was sort of like adopted by South Riverdale Community Health Centre. And we moved indoors. And we have electricity, running water, all things that we didn't have in the park. And we've been in this space since 2018. And we do supervised injection, and we respond to overdoses in this space, and we do a million other things as well. So the room that we're in right now is the injection space. So this is where people will come with their pre-obtained drugs to inject, or they could also snort their drugs. We don't have an exemption for smoking drugs, but there's a big push in the province to increase exemptions for that. But in this space, it is not illegal to be in possession of drugs. That's what makes it a safe place for people to come and use their pre-obtained drugs. And then we have staff who are folks with lived experience, people who use drugs, have used drugs, have that expertise that you can only know by living it. And we also have nurses, and we have a chiropodist that comes once a month. We have nurse practitioners that come 2 times a week. We have people with social work backgrounds. We have lots of, we have a wide, broad skill set to try to meet the needs of folks who come here. So we have many visitors a month. I think around 60 injection visits a month at this time is about our average. A day, sorry, 60 injection visits a day. And so folks come, they do their shot. If they overdose, we're here to respond. We are able to respond mostly with our oxygen interventions, and we very rarely have to use naloxone, which folks appreciate because naloxone can make you go into withdrawal, and it can be a very uncomfortable experience. And what else do we do?
We create a family here. We invite people in, and we treat them with love, honesty, and don't have any judgments against people. I can attest to that. I was an addict 8 months ago, and I was using in this exact room, I think on this exact chair behind us, and what happened was I was chewing on cookies and also overdosed at the same time. And when I came out of my overdose, I was told what happened, and my life started to change from there. I was living in a park, and I stayed in tune with Moss Park here, and the staff directed me as required, and I went to other places like Inner City, for Family Health up on Queen Street, and they put me in a direction where I was getting safe supply, and that safe supply put me on a route to be able to be by myself, focus on my needs, and ultimately I was picked out of the bunch of people in the park to possibly get housing, and housing was the big part of my change. Once I was able to attend housing and get them to agree with everything that would be required for me to get there, eventually 3 months later I was sitting in a 1-bedroom apartment and able to focus on my sobriety today. So it's a happy ending and an example of what this can do in people's positions when they're in their lowest in life. And I was in my lowest in life since I was 16 years old. So being on the streets in 16, it's a big change when someone gives you a home. So yes, that's about it for me.
Thanks for sharing that.
My name is Brian, by the way.
Brian.
My name's Erin. I work here as a registered nurse. And I think what Brian said is the most important thing about our service is that we're trying to work from a community-based perspective. The folks that come here
kill people with kindness.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Well, kindness is a huge thing. To be able to walk through a door and people are just kind to you, it really makes a big difference, and it helps us build community here, and we build community together, whether with workers and service users. We do art, we do advocacy together, we share meals together, and all of these things are as equally important to people's health as responding to overdoses is. So we try to give space for all of those things. So one thing that we love to do is to train people on overdose response and how to use naloxone kits, because of course overdoses happen out in the community all the time, and we want as many people as possible to be trained in how to respond to save each other's lives. So the kits look like this. They come with gloves,
right?
Always good to protect yourself from body fluids. They come with a mask, and you can see the mask shows you exactly how to use it so that you can give mouth-to-mouth to somebody with this in between, and the filter helps protect you from anything that might be in their airway system.
It restricts things from coming back.
And vice versa, exactly. So you can put that, and then if the person's lying on their back, chin up, head back.
Open the jaw.
Yeah, you want to make sure there's nothing in the mouth, because of course that'll be a barrier. Because airway management is super important. And in these little kits, they also come with directions about what to do. So you see somebody lying on the ground, the first thing you're going to do is make sure they're not just sleeping. So you're going to say, hey, are you okay? Hey, are you all right?
Yeah.
And then if they're just sleeping, they might wake up and be like, yeah, I'm fine, you can go. And you'll be like, okay. But a big tell if someone is having an overdose or that they've stopped breathing is that their color changes. So if someone is blue, purple, very ashen colored, you have a good indication that they have stopped breathing or they're not breathing enough, and it's time to do an intervention. Ideally, you'll have a couple people helping you. If you can, In a downtown space, often, even if you're walking alone, there's people around, you can say, hey, come over here, can you call 911? That's gonna be your first thing, is to call 911 and get them on the phone. And they will always direct you as well. But in this case, you also happen to have your naloxone kit. So, you know your person's not breathing because their color is really bad. You can give a couple of breaths, try to give a couple of breaths here. If you can get some oxygen into them, that's great. And then your next thing you're going to want to do is to prepare some naloxone. So I have the injection kit here, and we're going to just flick it to get all the liquid in the bottom part. And then you're going to find your little gray dot, and you're going to break it open. Can you show me how to do that? Perfect. All right, now we can put that down. Get our needle ready.
I like to think of this as opening up a cheese string. So everybody knows that as a kid. If you're not too old. Usually I tighten this up and we open it up. Now, I like to do this because inexperienced people will just jam the needle in and think they're doing the right thing. When in doubt, they're going to damage the tip of this needle. And what happens is, when you're stabbing someone's leg with this after you're injecting, it's going to end up bruising them or either even giving them an infection. So, what we do is to resist from doing that, we use this little window here on the side of the glass jar, stick the needle in, and I use that little window as a guide. I'd be looking from this way, but I'll use the camera's view. And I'm slowly sucking this juice up until we get 1 mil, and which will be the whole jar. And once that jar is empty, you will hear a slurp and probably a couple more. And then now we're full, as you can see. Now we're going to adjust this by taking the air out and preparing it for injection. And we're ready.
Okay, now if you've had a couple people helping you with this, hopefully someone was doing the airway management as well and giving breaths while somebody else is preparing the naloxone.
And calling 911.
And another big thing, what else do we have to check for? We want to check for a pulse also.
Yeah.
If we know a person's not breathing, we want to check to make sure they do have a pulse. So we can check in the neck, or we can check in the wrist. We want to make sure the person has a pulse. If the person has a pulse, we can continue with supporting the airway, giving them breaths, and administering naloxone. If they don't have a pulse, you're going to go straight to chest compressions. And that's a different scenario, and you're going to let 911 know that you're doing chest compressions. But in this scenario, we're going to say the person has a strong pulse, so we're giving air, we've drawn up an naloxone, and then how do we know where to give it?
Well, you're going to show them.
So there's two good options, and the needles will go through clothes within reason. So a big puffy jacket might not go through, or if someone has a lot of layers on, it might be hard. But generally, it can go through clothing. So you want to go in the delt or in the quad. So that's the muscle, the quad. If you're going to go on the arm, what I always do is I feel for the articulation of the shoulder bone, and then I do 2 fingers, and then that's my sweet spot. That's where I'm going to put the injection. We're aiming to go into muscle. We give that injection. And it would look something like what? We're just going to use an orange.
Yep. Basically, there's no real trick to this. You just put it into the muscle, right? And slowly inject it. And your job will be finished, and within 3-4 minutes, you'll have a response.
Yeah.
Maybe even earlier.
So you give that injection. You're going to note the time or ask somebody to note the time.
And close this up for safety of people around you, which
Yep.
is an easy flex up. Now no one can be injured or diseased.
So you get that in naloxone in. You're going to take note of the time. You're going to wait for 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. If you don't have a response in that time, you give another dose. Hopefully by that time, you'll have an ambulance with you to get that additional support, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to give a dose every 3 to 5 minutes until you get a response from the person. And if the person wakes up, put them in recovery position on their side. That just helps in case they're throwing up because of the naloxone. It can put people into withdrawal, so they might be throwing up. You want to make sure that they're in a good position where they won't swallow it or start choking on it. And those are the basics. That's the basic overdose response with use of naloxone.
We also have a nasal spray, naloxone, which we have used. Do you have an open one? Mm-hmm. It has the same behavior to bring someone back. I don't know all the chemical compounds about it, but I know it does do the same trick. And it may even be more powerful with a nasal spray.
Yeah, so it's the same medication, just delivered by a different route. What I've heard, what people say, what people tell me, and what we do is use the injection form if we have to use it. Just it seems to be better absorbed, and because it's not as strong, it doesn't put people into as much withdrawal as the nasal. But use whatever you have. Certainly if you're out in the world and you encounter an overdose, any naloxone is better than none in terms of having a good outcome for the person. A big thing about consumption and treatment services and safer use sites is that we have some additional tools that allow us to not have to use naloxone so much, which means we're not putting people into withdrawal, which naloxone will do. So I can show you, we have oxygen tanks.
Sure.
So the vast majority of the time we are using oxygen to respond to an overdose, and we don't use naloxone at all. If someone's not breathing, we have a bag valve mask and we can breathe for the person. If they are breathing, just not enough, we can put a face mask on them and give them some oxygen through that, just to help get their oxygen levels to adequate, to enough. So the vast majority of the time, that is what we're doing to respond to overdoses, and I think that's what makes places like this like unique and special and really helpful for community members, because they can come here and know with a good degree of confidence that if they overdose, we will only use naloxone if it is absolutely necessary, and that most of the time we can do other interventions that won't result in them feeling sick afterwards.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all of our social media platforms. For more information, check out our website.